What is going on, YouTube? Levi Adams here with Team TC, and there are 809 Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise. Every single one of them is someone's favorite, so I wanted to ask the question, can we use them in the TCG? Today we're going to be continuing our look at every single fully evolved Pokemon and how they stack up in the Pokemon TCG standard and expanded metagames. Welcome back to Dex. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Dex. Today we're going to be continuing our look at every Pokemon in the Pokedex and taking a look at Beedrill. Now, though Beedrill has the same kind of evolving gimmick in the video game that Caterpie does, that doesn't necessarily transfer over to the TCG. What does transfer over to the TCG is its nature as a bee, being able to take down things with its powerful stingers, as well as taking down itself, and that becomes most prevalent in its most recent incarnation in the Beedrill from Team Up. With Destiny Stinger for a single energy, if Beedrill has any damage counters on it, then both active Pokemon are knocked out. This is great specifically in the Tag Team GX matchup, as you are able to trade the 1-prize Beedrill for a 3-prize tag team, with tag teams at their lowest having 240 HP in Pikachu and Zekrom, and at their highest having 300 HP in Magikarp and Wailord. This being able to take a knockout on literally anything with no damage cap whatsoever makes Beedrill a force to be reckoned with. Beedrill has many strengths, being its most primary strength being its ability to KO anything. A 1-prize Pokemon means that your prize trade is amazing, and the fact that Weedle is a basic grass type allows you to use Netball phenomenally as well. The fact that this attack costs a single energy and combos incredibly well with Rainbow Energy. When it's attached, you put 1 damage counter on the Pokemon you attach it to, and it counts as any energy type, means that this deck can actually stand on its own 2 feet, and in the GX matchups can fare incredibly well. This being said, it does have some pretty glaring weaknesses, and the fact that you're a stage 2 definitely doesn't help anything at all. Outside of Rainbow Energy, it's really hard to get damage on your Weedle, or your Beedrill rather, meaning that your only energy option really is Rainbow Energy. Not only that, it's useless in a matchup against another single prize attacking deck, and the fact that you're reliant on Rainbow Energy to attack means that you have a maximum of 4 uses, considering there aren't many ways to get Special Energy back from the discard pile in the standard format. Now, all this being said, we can also use Beedrill in Expanded, and Beedrill has not only more options, but I think the most interesting option would have to be the Beedrill EX and Mega Beedrill EX promos that were released. Now, Beedrill EX is nothing really that special. You can do 160 damage on some coin flips, or you could discard 2 tool cards. Now, this Beedrill was actually a neat little tech in some decks, and the ability to discard tools off an attack is actually pretty cool with Garbodor in the format, but Field Blower kind of makes it irrelevant. However, Mega Beedrill has an attack that for 2 grass energy, you discard all energy from this Pokemon, and if so, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. You put 4 damage counters on that Pokemon between turns instead of 1. Now that's really cool, because that essentially turns your 40 damage attack into 120, because paralysis prevents retreat and you're doing 80 damage once the turn comes back to you off of poison alone. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at the strengths. Now, the biggest strength of this deck is the fact that you're doing this additional poison damage. In the expanded format, where Beedrill is currently legal, you do there's a card called Verbank City Gym, which does an additional 20 damage off of poison between turns. Now, normally this combos with a card called Hypnotoxic Laser, but since you're doing the poison yourself, you can just do 60 damage between turns, which means that your what was 120 gets boosted up to 160 as long as it comes back to you poison. Paralysis means that your opponent has to play around that in the following turn, whereas they may have been planning to Sycamore, they may have to Guzma, or dig for a switch as opposed to doing something else. And being grass type means that you have not only some neat search options with Netball, but you also have neat damage boosting options with a certain Lurantis card. This being said, you do still have some pretty glaring weaknesses. Probably the most glaring being the fact that you have very low HP for a Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes. Beedrill has 160 and Mega Beedrill has 200, meaning that it's really easy for your opponent to take knockouts. 160 is not only a number that's commonly hit, but especially in Expanded where you have a lot of damage boosting options, such as Choice Band, as well as Volcanion, as well as Verbank City Gym, comboed with Hypnotoxic Laser to do extra 30 damage off of poison, means that it's really easy to take a KO on Beedrill, and that's kind of a bummer. Not to mention the fact that you discard your own energy can make your turns kind of awkward. The idea with the deck is that you kind of switch between your 2 Beedrill as well as other energy accelerating attackers, but still it makes it awkward that you can't just smash with your Beedrill over and over again like other decks can with their primary attackers. Being a Mega Evolution also is a little bit rough, considering Mega Evolving ends your turn, unless you have a Spirit Link attached to the basic EX. Now, Spirit Links can be neat, but they can also be hard to find. We do have Adventure Bag now, which we are playing 1 copy of in our Mega Beedrill deck, in order to search out our Spirit Links, but it still doesn't take away from the awkwardness of it. Not to mention doing a base 40 damage, excuse my cough there, is really, really bad. Super low damage output, and at maximum, you do 200 damage, and that is with damage boosters from our Lurantises that we play in the deck, as well as Verbank City Gym, as well as our boosted poison output. It's just really, really not that good. Not to mention, in Expanded specifically, where this deck calls home, special conditions don't really stick, due to the fact that there are a plethora of switching options, both in Guzma and many, many, many switching cards, including but not limited to Switch, Escape Rope, Escape Board. The list goes on and on and on. Now, all this being said, weaknesses aside, we still have some decks for you to take a look at because that's the whole point of this series. Our standard format deck takes inspiration from the Oranguru control deck that we saw at the World Championships. It kind of replaces a lot of the good cards for the Beedrill line, I'm not gonna lie, but I think that makes it more fun and less obnoxious. Playing a 4-4-3 line of Beedrill, as well as 4 Rainbow Energy, you're sort of maximizing your consistency without clogging in this regard. We're playing the Shedinja from Celestial Storm, at least I think it's from Celestial Storm, which can turn itself into a tool and stops your opponent from taking a prize, or at least makes your opponent take 1 less prize from the Pokemon this card is attached to. So essentially, you knock out your Beedrill, and instead of giving your opponent 1 prize, if it has Shedinja attached, you give them 0 prizes, which is really, really cool. And actually really comes into play with the game that I have to show you with this deck. Playing a 4-4 line of Pidgeotto, because Pidgeotto is really, really good in setting up Stage 2 decks, being searchable via Professor Elm's Lecture. Professor Elm's Lecture being one of the strongest forms of search we have in the format currently. And of course, we're playing 3 different evolving Pokemon, so using Ditto Prism Star is a must. Every other card is kind of there for consistency. Brock's Grit is there for recycling Pokemon, and Reset Stamp, since we are giving up prizes, and we're going to be giving up prizes very easily, we're able to sort of disrupt our opponent's hand using Reset Stamp. I think it's a nice addition to the deck. I think you can take 1 out maybe, but I think 1 is a must. 2 is kind of debatable. Moving on to the expanded deck, our Mega Beedrill list just takes a hyper-aggressive, attach as much energy as you can, do as much damage as you can, as quick as you can approach. We're going to be playing Mega Turbo and Max Elixir as our form of energy acceleration. For those who don't know, Mega Turbo allows you to attach a basic energy card to one of your Mega Pokemon in play, making our Beedrill's attack cost a little bit less awkward after discarding the energy, which is very, very nice. You also see that we're playing Lurantis. The non-GX Lurantis boosts the damage of your Grass-type Pokemon by 20 for each Lurantis in play. With a maximum of 2, that's an extra 40 damage, which actually doubles our Beedrill's damage output. Pretty cool. And the GX Lurantis has an attack that for 30 damage allows you to attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. This essentially acts as an additional Mega Turbo, as well as having a nice GX attack that stacks based on how many grass energy you have attached to Lurantis, 50 damage times, which is really, really nice. Adventure Bag allows us to search out our Spirit Links, of which I only had 2 online, so we're only playing 2. I don't really think you need to set up more than 2 Beedrills, and if you take your, like, a single Beedrill and evolve it into Mega Beedrill and end your turn, it's really not the end of the world, depending on what state you are in the game. But essentially, 2 are all you're really going to need, and if you had to set up a third one, you're probably in a losing position anyway. Computer search is our ace spec of choice. Just being able to search out anything in the deck is really, really nice. Sorry if you heard my ear pop there. My ear was itchy. And as for our supporters, we are going to be playing Professor Sycamore and Lysander, as well as 4 VS Seekers. Just pretty standard in my personal opinion when you're just going for straight consistency, especially with 1 Tapu Lele and 2 Shaman EX. 10 energy is our energy count of choice. I think it's pretty nice. But let's go ahead and take a look at what I think of the decks. Now, with the rating system for this video, I'm going to be adopting this strategy, and that is a competitive viability versus an enjoyment standpoint. And for the standard deck, I give it a 4 out of 7 on enjoyment, being straight down the middle, mainly because Beedrill can take down anything in the game, and that is awesome. However, non-GX matchups suck, and also it's really easy to disrupt your deck, whether it be taking down your Pidgeotos, taking down your Beedrills, or just kind of dead drawing, which the deck can tend to do. The deck is fun when it's rolling, but it sucks when it's not. And as far as competitiveness, Beedrill could be a 1-1-1 tech, or maybe a 1 Rare Candy 1 tech, but it's definitely not something to build a deck around, and that's why it really hasn't seen that much competitive play. That being said, like I said, it's really, really fun when it gets rolling, and really, really powerful when it does. Just being able to take a knockout on anything is super duper cool. It's like a David Goliath in the era of tag team GXs. Mega Beedrill is a 1 out of 7 as far as competitive viability, and a 3 out of 7 in terms of enjoyment. Now, the only reason I give it 3 out of 7 is because Mega Beedrill is it's just a really cool Pokemon in terms of design, but that's probably the only enjoyable part about it. The fact that people often just switch out of your status conditions and you're entirely reliant on these status conditions in order to win is just a little bit of a bummer. And not only that, your damage output is nothing in the age of tag teams, in the age of Reshiram Charizard hitting 300 with its GX attack, in the age of Pikarom hitting 150 for 3 energy, 40 damage is awful, especially on a Pokemon that can essentially act as a stage 2, considering you need the Spirit Link in order to evolve most optimally. Now, all this being said, in terms of competitive viability, just because it rates low doesn't mean it can't get some wins and you can't get some good games. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the best games I was able to get with these decks, and show you, even though they might not be the best, you can still have fun and you can still take some wins. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and get into our first game. This game is actually going to be with the expanded deck, switching things up a little bit for this video, and we're going to be playing against a Fighting Box deck. As we both mulligan, we're going to be starting out with a Fomantis, not the most ideal lead, however we do have Ultra Ball, which can search out any Pokemon in the deck, as well as Battle Compressor, so if we top deck a VS Seeker, that can be good for us. Now, I see that my opponent's playing a How, which means that our opponent's deck is probably not the best it could be, but that's not gonna stop me from playing this game, because our deck's really not the best either. So we're gonna discard our Battle Compressor, as well as one of our basic grass energy. And we're going to go ahead and search out a Shaman, just because we'll be able to draw an additional 5 cards here. Go ahead and attach to Fomantis, just due to the fact that Fomantis has an ability that allows us to search our deck for a grass energy and attach it to one of our Pokemon any way we like. With 2 Beedrill on the bench, I'm going to attach a grass energy to each of them just so that I can go ahead and use Mega Beedrill on either one of them if I want during this next turn. We do draw our adventure bag, allowing us to search out both of our Spirit Links if we had them, but we only have one, so we're only going to search out one, as we are going to retreat into our Beedrill without the Spirit Link, just in case it gets knocked out, and use our Tool Scrapper attack to discard 2 tools, including the Ace Spec Rocky Helmet that was on our Rock Guard, I believe it's called, that's on our opponent's active. We evolve into the non-GX Lurantis, which gives our Pokemon a boost of 20 damage, our grass and fire type Pokemon, but we're only playing grass Pokemon, so, our grass Pokemon. And we're going to go ahead and use the second attack to hit our opponent for a total of 200 damage after weakness, being able to take a knockout on that Regirock right there. Our opponent does have a Buzzwole in the active, as well as a Diancie Prism Star on the bench, so with 1 energy, they will be able to take a knockout on our Beedrill EX. However, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to promote my benched Beedrill, and we're going to try and dig for a Mega Beedrill, which we do get, which is very, very nice. We're going to be able to use this turn to do a little bit more setup, as well as use our Beedrill to attack here, getting another Shaman to just help dig through our deck a little bit more. We hit Mega Turbos as well as Max Elixirs. Mega Turbo acting essentially as an Aqua Patch or Dark Patch to any Pokemon on the board, so long as it's a Mega Evolution. So we'll be able to charge up our Beedrill again, no problem here. As we do paralyze and poison our opponent, doing 120 damage. They give us the option to escape rope. We're just going to retreat into Shaman, being as if it is knocked out, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. We can afford to give up 2 more prizes, just because we will be able to essentially take a couple of knockouts in the coming turns that will change the tide of the game. We can go ahead and Lysander one of our opponent's more useless Pokemon, being the Diancie Prism Star, and evolve into our Beedrill without a Spirit Link as our Shaman goes down, just so that we can end our turn and not really have to worry about switching Shaman out. I'm not really too worried. I don't think that our Beedrills are going to be knocked out. I think that we're going to be able to take some KOs should we want to. I'm just going to go ahead and Hazard Stinger this Buzzwole in the active. Our hand is empty, but I trust that our deck will be able to get us what we need. And I also trust that my opponent will not be able to get what they need in order to take a knockout on us. We draw into a Professor Sycamore, which is perfect, as well as a Mega Turbo and an attachment for turn. We're going to go ahead and retreat into our Lurantis GX, as it has the most HP on the board, as well as can set up our benched Beedrill our Mega Beedrill EXs. We're able to take 2 prizes off of that Buzzwole, and we have the VS Seekers in hand, meaning that we can take a prize off of the Buzzwoles on the bench using Lysander, and we draw into a Grass Energy just so that we can even retreat into our Beedrill should we want to. I'm going to retreat into Beedrill and knock out this Buzzwole for the game. Moving on to game number 2, we are going to be going first. We have a Nincada lead, which is a little suboptimal for us, seeing as we have no real way of switching. Our opponent sees the Nincada and gets mad, thinking that we're probably an Oranguru control deck. They also let us know that we have a good deck for whatever reason. We have a pretty good hand here, as we're able to set up a bench full of Pidgeys and Weedles, as well as our Nincada. And we see that we're actually going to be playing against a Blastoise deck, which in my personal opinion is super duper cool. However, our turn 2 does not allow for any setup at all. We do have setup for next turn, but that's not this turn, so, Our opponent is going to set up a Ninetales GX on the bench, allowing them to search for any 2 item cards. I let them know that they have a good deck because Blastoise is sick. They're going to go ahead and accelerate some energy onto their board. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep setting up like I do. We're going to get 3 Pidgeotos, allowing us to draw through essentially 6 cards, even though we only add 3 of them to our hand. We're going to go ahead and add some Beedrill, add the Judge Whistle, add a Netball, and just kind of dig through our deck, hoping to get pieces that we need. We're able to get a Kakuna from our deck, and we're just going to keep on playing our slow game. Considering our opponent's playing the slow game as well, it doesn't really matter too much. Our opponent's promoting the non-GX Blastoise, which will prove to be a bit of an issue for us, but not totally the end of the world. We're going to be able to dig through our deck as much as possible here, using things like our Pidgeotto as well as our Pokegears. We're going to try and just get our turns to be as set up as nicely as possible. We're going to debate between setting up a Weedle and a Nincada. I debate the Nincada just because we can get rid of it on the bench next turn and just continue our setup that way, as well as Nincada's kind of good promotion fodder, as even in the active we can use Shedinja's ability, so we can just get Nincada out of the active if we want to. We're able to use Lieutenant Surge to use 2 supporters this turn in order to dig through our deck for what we need, being able to dig for our Beedrill pieces. We have 2 Beedrills in hand as well as a Kakuna on the board and in our hand, meaning that we're going to be able to streamline our setup for the turns to come. We're going to attach this Shedinja to a Pidgeotto and promote said Pidgeotto just so that our opponent doesn't take any prizes during their next turn should they knock the Pidgeotto out. Our opponent is going to continue their setup using the Alolan Ninetales. They're going to go ahead and custom catcher our Kakuna, and I believe they leave it in the active this turn, which is a bit of a mistake in my personal opinion, just because they don't have a way of knocking it out, and they didn't learn that my Beedrill can knock out literally anything that they put down on the board. But live and learn for them. We're able to set up another Shedinja and attach it to our now Beedrill, as well as use our multiple Pidgeottos on the bench to continue digging through our deck to look for what we need. We're able to get another Beedrill as well as a Netball, which we are able to use to set up more Pokemon. And we're going to go ahead and Destiny Stinger this Ninetales and take 2 more prizes. We have a potential 2 more Destiny Stingers left in the deck. We're going to go ahead and promote our Pidgeotto with the Shedinja attached, just so our opponent can take a prize if they do manage to attack this turn. Our opponent promotes a non-GX Blastoise, which proves a little bit of a problem for us, as we're going to be able to use our Beedrill, sure, but we're also not going to be able to take a prize this turn. I'm trying to dig through my deck as much as possible at this point, kind of trying to empty out any cards that I can, just trying to see, is the last Rainbow Energy in deck? It's not, which means I have to take a knockout on this Blastoise and get Rainbow Energy out the prizes in order to win, which I do, which means we're still in this. Now, that doesn't mean that we win. We still have to take a knockout on a GX Pokemon. We still have to dig through our deck and hit the necessary pieces, but not only that, we have to set up a Shedinja. Now, the fact that we have Palpad in our hand, as well as 4 cards left in our deck, means that we can make our Shedinja setup their next turn. We have 3 Pidgeottos, and we're going to be able to dig through all 6 cards in our deck. So we look at 3, and then we're able to find the Brock's Grit to shuffle Shedinja back into the deck amongst some other Pokemon. But this means that we have to hit Shedinja next turn, and it also means that we have to swap out our Pidgeotto, or our Pidgeotto has to get knocked out. There's some stuff riding on this, and if we don't get it, that means that we go into sudden death or we lose. So our opponent's going to go ahead and use their Ninetales to take a knockout on our Pidgeotto, damaging our Kakuna in the process. And we draw into Shedinja, which means that the game is ours, and we are able to win. Our opponent does not take their last prize, but we take our last 2, and that is the deck. That is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Dex. Let me know what you think of Beedrill down in the comment section below. Next episode, we are going to be taking a look at Pidgeot and seeing what we can do with it in the Pokemon TCG. Until then, my name is Levi Adams with Team TC, and I will catch you guys next time.
Hey everyone, this is Ash Ketchum. Thanks for watching Team TC. Make sure to subscribe and become part of the team and join us on our journey to become Pokemon Masters.